What's up, everybody? I am Jesse, or as you all may know me as Game Over Jesse, and here with me is two very awesome guests to talk about the upcoming Breath of the Wild DLC, The Champion's Ballad. The first one here with me is, you can see on the webcam. Lexi, go ahead and introduce yourselves for those who may not know who you are.
I'm not really a YouTuber or anything. I just work for some of the chamber stages, but that's alright. Hi.
Alright. And second, we have Ashley here from the channel Champion Ashley. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I don't have a webcam because I'm too shy. Hi, I'm Champion Ashley. I do Nintendo-based videos where I also do discussions occasionally if anyone wants to talk to me. That's quite rare. And I also have a series called Lore of Gaming where I talk about lore of various video game franchises. I'm also planning on doing some Kingdom Hearts things soon, so stay tuned for that.
Today's topic is going to be very simple. What do we want from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild's Winter DLC? Nintendo has shown us a quick little beta trailer. I don't know really what to call it. And it shows Zelda going and talking to the Gerudo, I believe, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, starting off with you, Lexi, what are your hopes for this? Is the trailer that they showed off kind of in line with what you were expecting, or were your hopes for something else?
Well, to be fair, it was kind of underwhelming for the fact that it showed things in mostly not a very chronological order, because I've been in discussion with several people with like what we've seen, and basically when we saw the Gerudo scene, it was supposedly the past, mainly for the reason that the height difference between like the throne, someone sitting in the throne, so we're not sure whether it's Riju or Urbosa, so it could just be a memory, which is great, I guess, that we get more memories, but kind of underwhelming for the fact that it might not show as connection based to the present as we were hoping for. That's kind of what I'm thinking of as of right now. It's based upon DLC Pack 2.
So, like, putting the cutscene aside, we know it's going to have some kind of story and some kind of dungeon. What are your hopes for the dungeon? Because that could be a memory that takes place in the past, because most of the cutscenes in the game are, and that looked to be like a cutscene, so it would make sense for it to be a past memory. So what are your hopes for like the actual gameplay for the DLC?
I'm hoping it's something like a classic dungeon we used to see in like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, because we're kind of lacking that kind of nostalgia based upon dungeons, and that would just be so great as a feeling to see all that stuff happen again. I have high beliefs for that.
Alright, and what about you, Ashley? What were your initial thoughts on the trailer that they released? Or not the trailer, but the little cutscene.
Yeah, basically, I'm with Lexi on this one. I found the trailer to be, or if you'd like to call it a trailer, extremely underwhelming. But I won't give Nintendo too much stuff about that, because the DLC is almost 6 months away. So they still have quite a lot of time to, like, make a legit trailer. So, and this was back in, what was it, April when the trailer came out?
Yeah, so that would have given them like 2 months to work on the DLC. Or maybe a month.
So they didn't really have a lot to go on. So even though I did find it extremely underwhelming, I'm not going to be too hard on them, because they barely had enough time to even get enough stuff to show us. So I'm not too mad.
Yeah, like I've seen a lot of people complain like, oh, why are they waiting until the winter to give us this new dungeon? And it's like, well, they haven't created it Yeah, so while they're working on that, we get the first pack, which is some stuff that was probably left out due to time constraints or something, like the map feature, the extra masks, and stuff like that. So while we're waiting on them to actually finish the dungeon and the new story, the trailers, and everything, we're getting, well, not the trailers, but the cutscenes. We got the first DLC pack.
It was basically just to prevent what a lot of people like to call a content drought, where there is basically not enough stuff going around, not a lot of information, not a lot of content to keep us from pretty much not having a lot of fun and not being able to hold us over until the next DLC comes out.
Exactly.
So I think that's what they're doing.
Like, Nintendo could have been the way that EA and Ubisoft and other companies do, where they release DLC to where it's like you can get a new costume for $5 or $10. And if Nintendo would have done that, like, I thought an easy way for them to make money is just release like a monster saddle for like the bears or the skeleton horses and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, you can't put one of these in one of the horse stables because they freak out and they're like, that's not a horse. But then with this, maybe it makes them think that it is a normal horse. So then you can have Lord of the Mountains or whatever as a horse in a stable. And
yeah,
I would have bought that for $10. I'm sure a lot of other people would have.
I want to go riding around Hyrule Field cutting people up with the Fierce Deity armor on. That would be badass.
Yeah, so like, you know, they could have done simple stuff like that and everybody would have bought it. There would have been people complaining, yeah, but they didn't. Instead, they gave us like a lot of stuff for $20. We get new story, a bunch of different masks, Majora's Mask, which is probably the number one requested mask. But going back to the DLC we are getting, we mentioned that we wanted it to be a dungeon, kind of like dungeons from past games. So if it was a traditionally themed dungeon, would you want it to be like a mix of the different themes? Like if you think of Stone Tower Temple from Majora's Mask, to where it has elements from all of the other dungeons, like a typical endgame dungeon to where it has the forest, the fire, the water elements, and it's all kind of mixed into one? Or would you just want it something like the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess, to where there's not really an elemental theme to it, it's just a dungeon?
That's a really
Lexxi?
It's a really good question. Oh dear. I really think it should be like a whole conglomerate of all the dungeons we've seen before, just to get like add on to, like, if you haven't played one of these games, you can at least have something you do recognize, which I feel is really great.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
What about you, Ashley?
I don't know. I really love Stone Tower Temple, and for more obvious reasons, as I've told before on Discord, but I do think that you do have a point. There definitely is a good dungeon in no, that's the wrong word. Combining all of the elements of all the other dungeons into one. But I feel like in Majora's Mask, that kind of worked because other dungeons were so heavily dependent on those other elements. Like Woodfall had a lot to do with swamp and such, and Snowhead had to do with the snow and Great Bay. So there was just so much elemental thing going on there that I feel like it would work for something like Stone Tower Temple. But with Breath of the Wild, I feel like it's a different story because the divine beasts kind of don't rely too hard on elemental themes. Like, they do have them, but it's not in an overly dependent way. Like, take Varuta. Like, you'd have like the central mechanic of like adjusting the trunk to like pour down water. Like, that's a theme, yes, but it doesn't overly rely on the water to help you get through the dungeons. So I think that maybe what they need to do is just to have, like you said, Jesse, the Temple of Time, where there is no theme. It's just a good dungeon that I can get through without having to rely on them having to rely on other themes. Because I feel like with Majora's Mask, it's fine. With Breath of the Wild, it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because they don't rely on it.
Well, see, like, the reason I used those two examples is because the end-game dungeon in Ocarina of Time does something similar to that of Majora's Mask, to where it does have the elements of all of the different dungeons. Like, there's, when you first go into Ganon's castle at the end of Ocarina of Time, there's like the fire side, the forest side, and everything. And you have
They're little mini dungeons of all the other dungeons.
Right.
Except for the child dungeons.
And then in Majora's Mask, instead of having a bunch of mini dungeons to make up one big dungeon, it's all of the different elements are actually combined a lot better to make just one dungeon, instead of it feeling like a bunch of separated mini dungeons. And then in Twilight Princess, we have the Ganon's castle at the end of the game that doesn't really have a theme. It's just a massive dungeon. And then we also have
it's pretty much Breath of the Wild, Ganon's Castle 1.0.
Right.
Where it's basically all of these enemies in this space, and you gotta get through them all before you get to the top.
Exactly. And the reason that I bring up the Temple of Time is because in the present of Twilight Princess, the Temple of Time doesn't really exist in the way that it does for the dungeon. You have to, like, do the whole sword in the mantle, whatever. I forgot the word. The pedestal.
The stone in the pedestal.
Yeah, the sword in the pedestal.
Sword.
So you put... yeah, I just got off of a podcast earlier, so I'm a little drained at the moment. Yeah. So
continue on.
You put the sword in the pedestal, and then it opens up the gateway to the Temple of the Time, or Temple of Time in the past. In a similar way, something Breath of the Wild could do. That way, they wouldn't have to like try to explain why there's suddenly a new area in the game. That wouldn't necessarily make sense story-wise. They could have it similar to that of the Trial of the Sword, where you just put the sword in the pedestal and then you're taken to this one place. They could do something similar to the Temple of Time, to where you go to the Temple of Time, maybe the goddess statue's moved out of the way or something, and then there's another pedestal. So you just put it in the pedestal, and all of a sudden the Temple of Time, you're taken to what it looked like when it was fully completed. And then there's a staircase leading to a window or something, just like in Twilight Princess, where it takes you to an actual dungeon. I think that would be the best way to bring it in without messing up the story.
I do get what you're saying, but I feel like that would be a little bit too on the nose, where people will be complaining, oh, it's exactly like Twilight Princess. So I think that you are on the right track, but I still do think that they need to do still different things to make sure that it's not a straight copy-paste of Twilight Princess's Temple of Time.
Alright, well, moving on from the dungeon itself. If you're a fan of videos like this that cover the history of canceled games and consoles, be sure to subscribe, check out our Patreon to support this channel and the creation of new videos with your advice and input, and check out our top 5 canceled games series and let us know what games you would like to see us cover in the future. So far, we have lists covering the Zelda series, Mario, Nintendo, PlayStation, and plan to have dedicated videos covering a list of cancelled Sonic and Pokemon games, with this video being a taste of what to expect. What's up everybody, Game Over Jesse here, and if you enjoyed this video and are into awesome nerdy geeky content like we are, consider subscribing to Geek Fuel, a monthly subscription box that is guaranteed to have over $50 worth of great stuff in every box. You'll receive an exclusive shirt, games, collectibles, and other geek-related greatness. Use the link geekfuel.com/GameOverJesse to not only get $3 off of your subscription, but to help out our channel as well, which means more time to work on more videos for you guys. I want to thank you all for watching this video, and welcome to the End Slate. If you're a fan of these videos, please subscribe and comment below to let me know your thoughts. If you would like to support this channel, please consider supporting on Patreon, where you can watch videos like this early, and help me create longer videos like the top 10 best and worst of Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, and the top 5 official Zelda games that have either been cancelled or just went unreleased. Finally, a huge thank you to this month's supporters: George Says Hi, Link Uses the Triforce, Transcendent Sacred Courage, Glenn Cassio, Prey Warrior, Victopedia, Rusty Caulfield, Robert W., Amanda Pina, Lunarium, Chris Gasperin, Harris Priest, Lovable Christie, Key of Time 15, Jerome Major, Daryl Quinnen, Furzin 16, Kadron, Magic Tech Review, and the Itch Network. What's up,